even to our spouses, and
Mm-hmm.
understand that if I'm sharing this emotion with you, one, it's because I trust you and I know that you can handle my emotions. And two, you're not going to use this as a form of weakness against me.
So for us, John, as black men, there's a whole other side of like social media
Mhm.
associated with black male. You know what we are, who we are, what we do, what we don't do,
Yeah.
and things like that. And it has had an impact on a lot of young black men and men of my age and older.
Mhm.
What would you say regarding black male mental health? What would you say some of the huge issues that you see or have dealt with when it comes
Yeah,
to that?
I know personally, I've been really just now coming coming to the point where I'm dealing with the idea of vulnerability and how men can be socialized to stray away from vulnerability, to stray away from things that make you a certain type of emotion. There are certain emotions that are allowable and there are certain emotions that are not. So as long
Absolutely.
as you stay on the rage or
Mhm.
power dynamic, that's okay, that's allowable. Men can be aggressive, men can be strong, forceful,
Yep.
angry, like those things are okay. But when you start to dabble into sadness and if there's any type of confusion or things that you have disillusion with, you
Yes.
then are labeled as weak. You're labeled as, oh, this is not masculine.
Right.
This is, something that's very feminine, that, emotions should be left to women.
Yep.
And that is how we show our strength, because we do not tap into emotions like women do.
Right.
And so, now I'm starting to challenge that within myself. And it's something that I even share with other men and young men that I'm connected to, that, this idea of being emotional and having emotions somehow correlates to being weak or not being a man. It's just not
Mhm.
true.
Absolutely.
And, the reality is human beings have emotion.
Yes.
And doing your best to hold and coddle these emotions is not going to benefit you the way that you think that it is.
Hmm.
Uh, because we're told to hold emotion, don't show emotion. Even in my journey with that, coming to terms with, hey, if you want to be an effective person, you have got to be able to share emotion, not just good, not just positive, not just, well, I feel great today, but you have to be able to do the in between and the other end of that spectrum, which is closer to sadness, which is closer to not feeling your best today, not feeling, being the strong man who can come in and move all the furniture around and never be sad, only eat and be happy. That
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh
That's a
yeah.
good point.
are not real. They're men that you see on TV, and they
Mhm.
are men that are trying to display this form of masculinity
Mhm.
that does not lean to what real people deal with. And
Yeah.
so I'm on my own journey with that, and chatting with other men about, hey, we've got to get to a point where we can actually talk to one another. And that's a whole nother thing, men to men,
Oh, oh, oh.
even to our spouses, and
Mhm.
understand that if I'm sharing this emotion with you, one, it's because I trust you and I know that you can handle my emotions. And two, you're not going to use this as a form of weakness against me
Mhm.
later
That
on as
that
Very
part.
powerful.
That part.
we go through our journey, because people have emotions,
Yes.
not women. People have emotions. And in order to be a healthy person, you have to figure out how to share that, how to navigate that. in a society that says, shut up, be strong, hold it in, and just keep it pushing, because that's what men do. Just keep your head down. And one day when you get to that other side, all of that holding in will be worth it.
John, you killed it.
Yeah.
Perfect answer. I want to put some nuance to it. I think that one of the problems that we have, and we're all black, so let's talk about black people. I think you're black, right? Anyway, so
rude.
the problem that, and this is what I tell men, any man that listen, I tell them, listen, we have to understand what emotions are, and we have to understand how we express emotions. We're not the same. So a lot of young men are being taught today that they have to show emotions like a woman. That's the problem. That's the other side of the coin, right? Yeah. So we have to be careful. It's like, oh, you got to show your emotions. Well, showing your emotions doesn't mean that I had to sit around and in a circle and hold hands with a bunch of men and cry and kumbaya like women do, because we're not the same. And so I think it's important that men of my age and experience express to young men properly how to show emotions. And that's what's not being done. And I hold my generation and the generation before me responsible for that, because we have not done a good job of it. You know, like you said, you log on the internet, it's all these dudes that got all this money and muscles and all this stuff, and they're like, you can't show emotions and you don't do that, don't do this, you know, and you gotta learn how to do that. You gotta learn when there's a when and how for a man to express his emotions, because like you said, anger is completely acceptable. For men, you know, and it's a completely acceptable emotion, especially for black men, movies, TV, media. You know, the angry black man's a thing, the gangster, all those things like that. Those tropes come from somewhere. And on the flip of that, and I'll let my wife address this also, is that there's all that into our culture has been sewn and interwoven in that women have become turned off by men that are emotional or soft-spoken, easygoing, and you know that's how a lot of dudes end up in the friend zone. Well, he's nice, but I mean, you know, every man's heard it. You know, you're too nice. You know, you're too nice. I need a thug in my life. You know, that kind of stuff has been interwoven into our culture. And so a young man having to navigate that is very, very difficult for him trying to figure out, okay, I want to be masculine. I am masculine, but I also am a person who has emotions. How do I show that? So what do you think from a female standpoint? And then we'll let Bree answer that also. What do you think? How do you think our culture has fed that to our women?
It's funny, the moment we're asking you guys to have, you know, to be softer and to show your emotion and to share it with us. And then when you're crying, it's like, oh, you're crying too much. I need you to man up. I need you to not do that. Even though I asked you to be emotionally intelligent and to share and to be open and here's this safe space for you. And now that you're opening yourself up, that's too much. So it's a lot of mixed messaging, I think, that's coming from women when we're asking y'all to be, you know, my man won't open up and he won't share. Well, when he does, are you really prepared for what he has to share? And I think sometimes we're not necessarily ready for it.
We see that a lot when we're, you know, we'll see that a lot, especially with a younger couple. She will get frustrated because he's too emotional. He's too emotional. Or he will get frustrated because she doesn't validate his emotions and things like that. And we see back to the social media thing, we see what happens when y'all remember when Tyrese had that meltdown about his kids. When Will Smith was crying on the red table. People made fun of him. They made fun of him. They made memes out of him. So that culture is telling men it's not safe to show any kind of emotion.
Absolutely.
So that we have to work on ourselves, John. And we got, like you said, we got a lot of stuff to work out as men. But I think on the other side of it, our women have to understand that there's a part that we all have played into this culture of not showing our emotions properly or displaying them properly.
Yeah, and I like what you said also, John. Having like this space where you as men can talk and connect is necessary. Where y'all can open up to one another is necessary. It's one thing to reveal and open up to your spouse, and that's something that's needed definitely for your marriage. But it's also another thing to have like a cave or a place where y'all come together as men and you talk about real issues where y'all can allow one another. And I know you can only do that with only a select few. You can only do that with men that are safe, because that can be, unfortunately, because that can also be viewed as weakness and used against you. So you have to be selective and careful. But I think those spaces are needed. And I think more and more men are actually really advocating for that because it is needed.